Every so often, a handful of products slip through at Dollar Tree that genuinely feel like a pricing mistake. Not because they're broken, not because there's some kind of clearance leftover nobody wanted, but because the actual quality sitting behind that price tag is so far above what $1 or $1.25 should reasonably get you that it starts to feel like the store simply hasn't caught up to what it's actually selling yet. It happens more often than most shoppers realize. A specific SKU gets sourced from a manufacturer at a genuinely good rate. It lands on shelves at the store's standard low price point, and it takes months before enough people notice the gap between what it costs and what it's actually capable of. Shoppers who've been paying close attention over the last few months keep circling back to the same handful of items, comparing them side by side against name-brand versions costing 10, 20, even 40 times more, and walking away genuinely stunned at how close the gap actually is. These are the kinds of finds that quietly build a following online long before a store ever notices, and once enough people catch on, they tend to either get repriced, reformulated, or pulled entirely to protect margins. Today, we're counting down 10 Dollar Tree products that Dollar Tree may genuinely come to regret pricing this low, because once you see what's actually inside the packaging, you'll understand exactly why shoppers are stocking up on these before anything changes. This isn't a list built around wishful thinking or a single lucky find either. Every single item here has already built a track record online, with people independently testing them against name-brand competitors and landing on remarkably similar conclusions, which is usually a much stronger signal than a single glowing review or a one-off viral video. If you love finding this kind of underpriced gem before word gets out, go ahead and hit that like button and let's get straight into it. Number 1. The Double Wall Insulated Tumbler. This is the one that keeps coming up over and over in comparison videos, and for good reason. At $2.50, this stainless steel tumbler is genuine double-wall vacuum insulated construction, the same core build that popular name-brand tumbler companies use to justify price tags of $20 to $35. Shoppers who've run side-by-side ice tests report that it keeps ice solid for 6 to 8 hours, even in warm outdoor conditions, which lines up almost exactly with what the premium brands advertise. The lid seals tightly enough to survive being tossed in a bag or a car cup holder without leaking, and the exterior finish resists the condensation ring that plagues cheaper single-wall tumblers left sitting on a desk. At this price, it's genuinely cheaper to buy 5 of these than one of the popular branded versions, and multiple shoppers have mentioned doing exactly that. One for the car, one for the desk, one for the gym bag, without feeling like they're compromising on quality to do it. The exterior finish also resists scratching and denting better than expected for something this affordable, holding up through repeated drops onto tile and concrete in ways that would visibly dent a thinner, cheaper tumbler. A few reviewers have specifically pointed out that the powder-coated finish hasn't chipped or faded even after months of daily use and regular dishwasher cycles, which is usually the first sign of quality wearing thin on cheaper insulated drinkware. It also comes in a couple of different color finishes, still available on the shelf, which is a small detail, but one that makes it easy to color code between family members or keep a matching set for the whole household without paying extra for it. The straw lid variant, when available, has also held up well under regular use, with the straw itself resisting the discoloration that cheap plastic straws typically develop after repeated exposure to coffee or juice. It also fits comfortably in most standard car cup holders without needing to be squeezed in, a small detail that's easy to overlook until a tumbler is just slightly too wide and becomes a daily annoyance. Number 2. The Ceramic Non-Stick Frying Pan. Kitchenware. This functional almost never shows up at a price this low, which is exactly why this one has quietly built a following among home cooks. At $5, this ceramic-coated non-stick frying pan releases eggs and delicate foods cleanly without sticking, even on the first use, before any real seasoning has built up, which is usually the moment cheaper non-stick pans fail hardest. The handle stays cool to the touch during stovetop cooking, and the base sits flat and even across a burner rather than warping under heat the way thin, cheap cookware often does within the first few uses. Home cooks who've compared it against ceramic pans running $30 to $40 at kitchen specialty stores say the actual cooking performance is close enough that the price difference is difficult to justify for anyone who isn't specifically chasing a brand name. For a $5 pan to hold its own against a $40 one, is exactly the kind of pricing gap that tends to correct itself once enough people start talking about it. The rivets holding the handle in place are also secured tightly enough that there's no wobble even after repeated use, which is often where cheap cookware fails first, long before the actual cooking surface shows any wear. Several home cooks have mentioned using it specifically for eggs and delicate fish, the two foods that expose a bad non-stick coating fastest, and reporting clean releases on both well beyond what they expected going in. The pan also heats evenly across the entire cooking surface, rather than developing hot spots in the center, which is a common issue with thinner, cheaper cookware, and it's light enough to handle comfortably with one hand while still feeling sturdy rather than flimsy. It's also compatible with gas, electric, and glass-top stoves without any noted warping issues, which broadens who can actually get use out of it regardless of what kind of stovetop they have at home. The coating has also held up well against metal utensils in a handful of accidental scrape tests, showing no visible scoring, though a wooden or silicone utensil is still the safer long-term choice for preserving any non-stick surface. Number 3. The Microfiber Cleaning Cloth Set. This one doesn't look like much sitting on the shelf, but the actual weave quality is noticeably denser than the thin, almost see-through microfiber cloths sold at this price elsewhere. At $1.25 for a multi-pack, these cloths pick up dust and grime without leaving streaks on glass or mirrors, and they hold up through dozens of wash cycles without fraying at the edges or losing their texture, which is usually where cheap microfiber falls apart fastest. Cleaning-focused content creators who've tested them against premium $12 microfiber sets report almost identical streak-free results on stainless steel and glass surfaces, which is a genuinely surprising outcome for a cloth costing a fraction of the price. For anyone who goes through cleaning cloths quickly, this is one of the easiest swaps on this entire list to make without giving up any real performance. The edges are also stitched rather than simply cut, which prevents the fraying and shedding that loose-edge microfiber cloths are prone to after just a handful of washes, and the fabric stays soft rather than stiffening up after air drying, which matters more than people expect when it comes to actually wanting to reach for a cloth instead of a paper towel out of habit. The pack includes a couple of different colors as well, which makes it easy to designate one color specifically for glass and mirrors and another for countertops, avoiding cross-contamination between cleaning tasks without needing to buy separate specialty cloths for each purpose. They also dry quickly after washing, which matters for anyone keeping a rotation of a few cloths in regular use rather than waiting on a single one to air dry before the next cleaning session. Number 4. The LED Desk Lamp. Functional lighting at this price point is rare enough that this lamp alone has become something of a talking point online. At $5, this LED desk lamp offers genuinely even, flicker-free light output across multiple brightness settings, powered through a simple USB connection rather than a bulky, proprietary adapter. The flexible gooseneck holds its position firmly without slowly drooping over time the way cheaper flexible lamp necks tend to after a few weeks of repositioning. Compared against $15 to $20 LED desk lamps from office supply retailers, testers found comparable brightness and color temperature, with the main difference being a slightly smaller base footprint on the budget version. For students, remote workers, or anyone setting up a small desk space, this is a legitimate lighting upgrade for a fraction of what the category typically costs. The touch-sensitive power button responds reliably on the first tap, rather than needing repeated presses, and the light itself runs cool to the touch, even after hours of continuous use, avoiding the warm plastic smell that cheaper LED fixtures sometimes develop when left on for extended periods. The base also has a rubberized bottom that grips a desk surface firmly, preventing the whole lamp from sliding or tipping when the gooseneck is adjusted, which is a small but genuinely useful detail on a lamp at this price. The cord itself is also a reasonable length, long enough to reach a nearby outlet or laptop USB port without needing an extension, which is a small logistical detail that ends up mattering quite a bit once the lamp is actually set up on a desk. Number 5. The Silicone Phone Case. Phone cases from budget retailers usually feel exactly like what they cost: thin, stiff, and prone to cracking within weeks. This one, at $1.25, uses a soft-touch silicone that actually cushions a drop rather than transferring the impact directly to the phone, and the raised edges around the screen and camera are pronounced enough to genuinely protect against scratches when the phone is set face down on a table. Shoppers who've drop-tested it against $10 to $15 cases from phone accessory stores report surprisingly similar shock absorption in casual drop tests from waist height, though the pricier cases still edge ahead on drops from greater heights. For anyone who cycles through cheap cases anyway, because a nicer one always feels like too much of an investment for something that gets replaced often, this is a noticeably better version of the same idea. The buttons are also responsive with a satisfying click rather than the mushy, unresponsive feel that cheaper cases often have over the volume and power buttons, and the case has resisted yellowing after weeks of daily sun exposure in a car, which is a common failure point for lighter-colored budget silicone cases. The precise cutouts around the ports and camera lenses line up cleanly without needing to trim or force anything into place, which isn't always a given at this price point. It also comes in several color options, which lets shoppers actually pick a shade they like, rather than settling for whatever single generic option is left. A small touch that's easy to overlook until you're the one standing at the shelf trying to choose. Before we get to the next few, it's worth pausing on why products like this even end up priced this low in the first place, because it explains a lot about why this list looks the way it does. A big part of the cost behind a name-brand version of any of these items isn't the raw materials or manufacturing, it's marketing spend, retail markup, and brand positioning built up over years of advertising. Many of these categories, insulated drinkware, basic non-stick cookware, silicone kitchen tools, are manufactured using very similar processes and materials across a wide range of price points, and the biggest differentiator often comes down to which name ends up printed on the box rather than a meaningful difference in what's inside it. That doesn't mean every dollar item magically matches its expensive counterpart. Plenty of categories still show a real, noticeable gap, especially anything involving complex electronics or precision engineering. But for simpler, more mechanical products like the ones on this list, the actual performance gap is often far smaller than the price gap would suggest, which is exactly why savvy shoppers have started treating a first walkthrough of a Dollar Tree store the same way they'd treat browsing a specialty retailer, actually reading materials and construction details rather than assuming the price alone tells the whole story. Number 6. The reusable silicone food storage bags. Reusable silicone bags exploded in popularity as an eco-friendly swap for single-use plastic bags, and the premium versions built a whole cottage industry around that trend, often charging $10 to $15 for a single bag. This one, priced at $1.25, seals with a genuine leak-proof zip-style closure, stands upright on its own thanks to a reinforced base seam, and has held up in freezer tests without cracking or becoming brittle at low temperatures the way cheaper silicone sometimes does. It's also safe for boiling water and microwave use according to the labeling, which matches the functionality claimed by the pricier branded versions almost feature for feature. For anyone trying to cut down on single-use plastic bags without committing serious money to a full set of the trendier brand, this is a low-risk way to actually try the concept out. The interior surface also wipes clean easily without staining from foods like tomato sauce or berries, which is a common long-term complaint with cheaper silicone that absorbs color and odor over repeated use. And the zip seal has held tight through dozens of open and closed cycles without loosening or losing its grip. The bags also lay flat for freezer storage, stacking neatly rather than taking up bulky, uneven space the way rigid containers often do, which makes a noticeable difference for anyone dealing with limited freezer or pantry room. They've also proven safe through repeated dishwasher cycles on the top rack, holding their shape and seal integrity without warping from the heat, which some cheaper silicone products struggle with over time. The measurement markings printed on the side have also stayed legible after months of use, which is a small but genuinely useful detail for anyone using them to portion out meal prep ingredients ahead of time. Number 7. The bamboo utensil organizer. Kitchen organization tools rarely get much attention, but this one has quietly impressed a fair number of home cooks who've picked it up. At $1.25, this bamboo utensil holder has a solid, substantial weight to it, rather than the lightweight, almost hollow feel of cheaper plastic organizers. And the finish is smooth and splinter-free, even along the interior edges where lower-quality bamboo products often feel rough. It holds a full set of large cooking utensils upright without tipping over, even when the drawer or counter it's sitting on gets bumped during a busy cooking session. Compared against bamboo organizers running $8 to $12 at home goods stores, The material quality and finish are close enough that most people would struggle to tell them apart once it's sitting on a counter next to a stovetop. The base is also weighted well enough to resist tipping, even when only a couple of utensils are stored inside, unlike lighter organizers that topple over easily when they're not fully loaded, and the natural bamboo grain varies slightly piece to piece, giving it a more handmade look than the uniform, mass-produced appearance of plastic alternatives. It also cleans easily with just a damp cloth, and the finish has resisted water staining even after sitting near a sink for extended periods, which is often where cheaper wood or bamboo products start to look worn first. The overall footprint is also compact enough to fit comfortably on most standard kitchen counters without crowding out other essentials, which matters for anyone working with limited counter space. Number 8. The memory foam slippers. Slippers are one of those categories where the difference between cheap and comfortable is usually obvious the moment you put them on, which makes this one stand out immediately. At $3, these slippers use a genuine memory foam insole that contours to the foot rather than staying flat and stiff, and the outer sole has enough grip texture to avoid sliding around on hardwood or tile floors, unlike thinner slipper soles that offer next to no traction. They've held their shape well through repeated daily wear, according to shoppers who've had a pair for several weeks, without flattening out or losing the contoured support the way cheaper foam insoles often do within the first month. Compared against $15 to $20 memory foam slippers at department stores, the comfort level tracks closely enough that it's a hard case to make for spending 5 or 6 times more on the same basic idea. The stitching along the seams has also held up without unraveling after weeks of daily wear, and the interior lining stays breathable rather than trapping heat and moisture the way some cheaper enclosed slipper designs tend to, which matters more than people expect for anyone wearing them for hours at a time around the house. The outer sole has also proven durable against light outdoor use, like stepping out to grab the mail or check on a package, without the tread wearing smooth within the first few weeks, the way thinner rubber soles often do. A few shoppers with foot pain have specifically mentioned that the cushioning genuinely helps compared to walking barefoot on hard flooring, which is exactly the kind of everyday, practical feedback that tends to matter more than a glowing first impression. Number 9. The Collapsible Silicone Colander. Kitchen tools built around a collapsible design usually sacrifice durability for the sake of saving storage space, but this one has held up surprisingly well according to repeat buyers. At $1.25, this silicone colander folds flat for easy storage and expands into a full-sized bowl shape for draining pasta or rinsing produce, with a sturdy plastic rim that keeps its shape under the weight of a full pot of pasta water without buckling or spilling. The drainage holes are sized well enough to hold small foods like rice or orzo without losing them down the drain, which is a common complaint with cheaper collapsible colanders that have oversized or unevenly spaced holes. Compared against $15 collapsible colanders sold at kitchen specialty retailers, the build quality and capacity are close enough that it's genuinely difficult to justify the markup for most everyday kitchen use. The silicone also hasn't retained lingering odors from strong-smelling foods like garlic or onions after repeated washes, which is a common complaint with cheaper silicone kitchenware, and the folded, flattened profile genuinely does slide into a narrow drawer that a rigid colander never could. It also holds its expanded shape reliably every time it's unfolded, rather than needing to be coaxed back into position, which is a small but genuinely appreciated detail for anyone using it regularly during meal prep. The rim has also stayed rigid enough after repeated use that it doesn't sag or buckle under the weight of a heavy load of pasta, which is often where cheaper collapsible designs start to fail first. It also stores flat enough to slide into a narrow gap beside a baking sheet or cutting board, which is exactly the kind of small kitchen convenience that makes an otherwise unremarkable tool genuinely worth the counter or drawer space it takes up. Before the final item on today's list, it's worth mentioning that timing plays a bigger role in finding products like these than most people assume. Viral or high-demand items at any dollar store tend to move fastest right after a restock, typically earlier in the week, and slower-moving categories like home goods or kitchen tools often get replenished on a different schedule than fast-turnover categories like seasonal decor or snacks. That means a specific product on this list might be fully stocked at one visit and completely gone the next, not because it's been discontinued, but simply because that particular shelf hasn't been restocked yet. Checking back every few days or calling ahead to a specific location has become a common strategy among shoppers specifically chasing these harder-to-predict, high-demand finds rather than the easier, always-in-stock staples. Number 10. The weighted blanket-style throw. Saving the most surprising find for last, this lightly weighted throw blanket, priced at $5, uses evenly distributed glass bead filling rather than the lumpy, unevenly weighted stuffing that plagues a lot of budget-weighted throws. The outer fabric has a soft, brushed texture rather than a scratchy, cheap synthetic feel, and the weight distributes evenly across the body when draped over a lap or shoulders rather than pooling unevenly in one corner. Compared against actual weighted blankets running $40 to $60 for a full-size version, this smaller throw obviously isn't a direct substitute in terms of coverage, but for anyone who wants the calming, grounding sensation of gentle weight while relaxing on a couch, it delivers a surprisingly similar feeling for a small fraction of the price, and it's become one of the more talked-about sleeper hits in the entire home goods section this year. The outer cover is also machine washable without the glass beads shifting or clumping into one corner afterward, which is a common failure point for cheaper weighted throws once they've been through a wash cycle, and the stitched channels keeping the filling evenly distributed have held up well through repeated use and laundering. The size is generous enough to drape comfortably over both legs while sitting on a couch, and the fabric has stayed soft rather than matting down or losing its texture after multiple wash and dry cycles at home. A few shoppers have also mentioned keeping one folded over the back of a couch specifically for guests, since it doubles as a normal-looking throw blanket when it isn't actively being used for its calming weight. That wraps up today's list of 10 products that genuinely feel underpriced for what they actually deliver. It's worth remembering that pricing like this rarely lasts forever. Once enough people catch on to a specific product, and it starts moving off shelves faster than expected, stores often respond by repricing it, reformulating it with cheaper materials, or discontinuing it altogether to protect their margins, which is exactly why several items on lists like this one tend to disappear or change within a matter of months. This has happened before with other viral dollar store finds. A product builds a quiet following, gets mentioned in enough videos and posts, and within a few months, either the price creeps up slightly, the materials get swapped for something thinner, or it simply vanishes from shelves entirely as the supplier relationship changes. None of that is guaranteed to happen with every item on this specific list, but the pattern has repeated often enough across different product categories that it's a genuinely reasonable thing to keep in mind, rather than assuming today's price and quality will still be there next year. It's a big part of why shoppers who follow these kinds of lists closely tend to act on them relatively quickly, rather than filing a product away as something to grab eventually, since eventually has a way of turning into too late once a specific item starts trending. If any of these 10 caught your attention, it's worth picking one up sooner rather than waiting, since there's no guarantee the version sitting on the shelf next month will be built quite the same way. It's also worth checking more than one nearby location if a specific item isn't in stock at your usual store, since inventory allocation and restocking schedules can vary quite a bit, even between locations that are only a short drive apart, and a product that's sold out at one store is often sitting fully stocked at another just a few miles down the road. Which one of these are you most surprised by? Let us know in the comments below, and if you've found a product that feels underpriced for what it actually delivers, drop that in the comments too, since a lot of our best finds start exactly that way, with a viewer mentioning something they picked up almost by accident and ending up genuinely impressed. If you enjoyed this list, make sure you're subscribed, because we track finds like these and bring you a new list every single week before the rest of the internet catches on, and we read through every comment before putting the next list together. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.